How's it going, everybody? The new patch notes just dropped for Helldivers 2. This is the first major update, as far as I know, and they're bringing about a lot of balance patches. Of course, you can find everything in the patch notes for yourselves in the Discord channel. Yeah, we need to fix that. There we go. Okay, so what actually happened? So they tried to balance a lot of things. They tried to bring some balance to the weapons. They tried to bring some balance to the armors, as well as to some of the stratagems that we're using. So unfortunately, we won't be able to test everything, but we'll at least be able to talk through what they did. So let's actually get started. So patch 01, 000100, they love their decimals in this. The devs love their decimals. So let's go through each and every line, and I'll share with you. I mean, obviously, you can see like I'm not level 50, right? I'm level 28. I have about, I don't know, 50, 60 hours in the game. But I've been playing on difficulty 8 and 9 for the past couple of missions. I'd say probably like the past 10 to 12 hours I've spent them, maybe 15 hours I spent them on difficulty 8 and 9. So I think I have some idea of kind of how this is going to impact the game. Of course, we're going to go into a stream later and see the changes for ourselves. But for now, I just wanted to get ahead on the patch notes, kind of talk through them, and hopefully bring some predictions to the table. So first things first, planetary hazards are now active as if they weren't before. So many planets now have additional environmental challenges that will appear at random while you're deployed, from fire tornadoes to meteor showers and many more. As much as I love this, I would have preferred that they fix ragdolling first before adding more environmental challenges. It's already difficult enough to get around as it is, with bushes, for example, not being telegraphed as to like which ones are going to. Okay, I'm muting this game. Why is this? Okay, you know what? We're just gonna do no sound effects, no voice chat. We're just gonna leave the music on for just a little bit of ambient noise. We just have to remember to turn it back on when the game starts. Yeah, so we know that ragdolling is a bit of an issue. We know that when you're climbing over obstacles or when you're jumping down, you can start to slide or you can start to ragdoll at random, and that gives bugs the opportunity to jump and pounce on you, especially the little hunters, which if you don't have a personal shield, which we'll get into a second, they slow you down. And once you're slowed, you are basically free food. So introducing even more environmental hazards before really getting a grasp on the terrain and on like the way the movement works in this game, I believe will introduce even more kind of like undeserved deaths, let's put it this way, or like rage deaths, where you feel like you've done nothing wrong, but the game just decides to ragdoll you, or the game just decides to like not climb over an obstacle. Let's see how real those challenges are, but I have a feeling that even though they're really welcome, I think that they're a bit too early in the game. There's enough stuff to deal with, more or less at high levels of gameplay. I think for probably this will spice things up for the mid-range difficulties, I would say, because if you play on difficulty 3, 4, or 5, 5 is where you really start to see the Bile Titans come in, and you start to see like the tanks and the flamethrower and the rocket heavies. It might, a little bit more challenge that is just not, a unit trying to kill you, but it's more like an environmental challenge, would spice up the game. At top tier difficulty, I think that this is a little bit unnecessary given the way things are balanced right now. But then again, I'm excited to see them. I'm excited to see how they play in. I don't know if I'll go like below difficulty 5 in terms of testing some things out. But generally, I think this is a good addition to the game. A lot of people were expecting this to be in the game from the very beginning. Apart from like some random mines, I don't think there's even anything that can kill you on bug planets, on terminate planets. The only environmental challenges right now are the little like gas vents on terminate planets and the mines on automaton planets. Okay, moving on. So eradicate missions. These have been a bit of a problem lately. People are definitely abusing these missions to farm very, very quickly. One of the most notable ways to farm, right, is to get a 4-man group and or like a 4-person group, you get like all of your turrets, right? You get like all of your little turrets. You go into this like 15-minute mission where the map is 2x2, right? You deploy all of your turrets in the center. The bugs spawn out here, and everything just gets nuked to bit. You just stand here AFK, you don't do anything, and you're done in pretty much 3 minutes. I think if you check out the beginning of yesterday's stream, I do 2 of those missions with randoms, and we just nuke the whole place in 2 minutes, get out, get our medals. Not really, I mean, also you can go on YouTube and check out like medal farming. This is primarily what they do. So what they're trying to do is eradicate missions now require more kills and enemies spawn more often. The time to complete the mission was previously shorter than intended and should now take twice as long to complete. This isn't necessarily a lot because it takes 2 to 3 minutes, right? So making it 5 to 6, like, yeah, obviously that doubles your farming time. I think one of the big questions, like something that we don't know yet, is how long will the battle pass last for? The medal requirements for the top, like for page 8 and 9, is fairly ridiculous. I mean, we can go and check. I mean, here's the patch notes, right? So we can go and check. Oh, I've been talking about the game this whole time. If we look at the battle pass, we can see that it takes. I've already spent 496 medals. It takes 700 medals just to unlock the last version, and then from here on, it's 100 for the armor, it's 75 for the weapon, it's 150 for the reinforcement budget. The medal requirement is quite up there, and if you look at the Steel Veteran Battle Pass, I mean, it's not as ridiculous. I mean, I've already have page 3 unlocked. However, I haven't really opened anything here yet. I just have it unlocked because truly before the patch notes, before this patch was introduced, there's really no reason to use anything. The Revolver is a super early game weapon that you only unlock if you have the premium battle pass unlocked and you're struggling to have medium armor penetrating weapons early into the game, like before level 10. It makes sense to get this, but otherwise this weapon is not as strong as maybe it could be. But also given the fact that it is a premium exclusive, I guess they don't want to make it a pay to win. I think the CEO said this themselves. The Dominator, again, doesn't really match up with the Breaker, and so goes for the Breaker Incendiary. So let's just quickly check, right? So we're talking about medals. I mean, the requirement is quite up there. Hopefully the battle pass lasts long enough to warrant, like to make it worth it, basically. Did they change this armor? Am I crazy? I must be crazy. Okay. Or maybe I just never checked this one. Looks interesting. So let's go back to the patch notes, which is... the mission will take 2 to 3 minutes long to complete. This will obviously basically double the amount of time that it takes to farm medals using just like simple eradicate missions. But let's say I hope that they actually introduce some buff to medals, or at least a buff to the medals found in game. Like right now, finding 1 to 4 medals. I mean, when you find like 4 to 5 medals, it does feel quite rewarding. But when you find 1, it's a little bit of a question mark, especially when something costs like 150. And the only way to reasonably, get medals right now is to actually just do Helldive difficulty. Otherwise, it's going to take you hundreds probably of hours to unlock the entire battle pass. I mean, I'm sitting at 50 hours right now, and I've spent a third of the medals that I need to even unlock the last tier. So, and it's just getting progressively more expensive. Anyway, let's get into what everybody wants to see, which are the changes to the primary, secondary, and support weapons. So the SG225 Breaker, as we know, is the current meta weapon. This is the de facto. You can find it here on page 4. This is the weapon of choice. This is overpowered, to be honest, but it's only overpowered in relationship to how weak the other weapons are. As you can see, I don't really have most of them unlocked, and the reason why I'm not buying them is because there's no reason to buy them, right? I mean, I am curious. I mean, I've just been rushing the page 10. I am curious to see how they behave. Like maybe I can farm 70 medals and just kind of test these weapons out. But this has been the go-to weapon into late game up until the +1 Scorcher. This is probably the only weapon that can hold a candle to the SG25 Breaker. I'm not so confident that they've nerfed it enough, but I don't want to see it nerfed, to be honest. I'm a big fan of making things overpowered rather than underpowered. So rather than nerfing the SG225 breaker, I would like them to see buffs to all the other weapons, like the SGA Punisher, which actually feels quite nice to control, but it's just like shooting, I don't know, rice pellets at them. The R63 Diligence one-shots plain units, so like very simple units get one shot. However, the mag is quite limited. It's not feasible basically to use it, especially because against medium armor targets, it's not as effective. You get much more bang for your buck using the SG225 breaker, which actually like 2 or 3 shots medium enemies. Like the warriors or like the spitters, like if you have a spitter charging at you, you can kill it in like 2-3 headshots, whereas with the R63 Diligence, it's going to take a lot more shots than that, and it doesn't really make sense. So going back to the weapons, right? So what they've done is they decreased magazine capacity from 16 to 13 and increased recoil from 30 to 55. I'm going to be honest, this doesn't really matter. You should not be full autoing the breaker anyway, because it's just a waste of ammo. Half the time, because of the death animation, so if you're not kind of familiar with how many shots it takes to kill a bug, or what kind of bug you're killing, you're just wasting ammo. The ammo for it is quite limited anyway, so you used to have 16 by 7. That's how many mags you get, that's how many mags you get. So it's not a lot of ammo in the first place, especially at, so what's 16 times 7? 16 times 7 is 112 bullets. So 112 bullets, you used to get 112 bullets, and now you get, what, 91? Yeah, now you get 91 bullets. Obviously, why do I? Okay, so obviously, that's quite the reduction, right? You lose 21 bullets in total, so you have pretty much like 1.5 mags less, pretty much. That's a lot. That's a lot because you're running out of ammo very quickly on this weapon. And the reason isn't because it doesn't do damage. The reason is there's just a lot of enemies on higher tier play. In difficulty 8 and 9 or 7, 8 and 9 is where you can sort of... So I'd say the main difference between difficulty 7, 8, and 9 is just the mere amount of like heavy spawns. So I'd say that the middle spawns kind of cup here, right? So let's say you have like easy enemies, medium enemies, and like heavy enemies. So these are like your titans, and these are like your chargers if you're talking about terminates. So at number 7 is where you kind of, maybe even 6, but let's say 7 is where your kind of easy enemy cap. You're not gonna get any like much more like tiny bugs than 7, maybe even 6. 5 is where you get to see like your first titan, like you get like 1 titan on 5, then maybe you get like 1 to 3 titans on 6, and then on 9 you can have like double titan spawns. Even on 8 sometimes you can have like double titan spawns. On 9 you can have like 5 titans roaming the map at any single point. You get like 3 chargers per outpost quite often, or like 3 chargers at the mission point. So the nerf to 91 bullets primarily affects gameplay basically past, I would say, level, like basically affects, I would say, 6 and 7 mostly. So because this is where you have to deal more with medium enemies rather than like heavy enemies. So these tiers should be impacted the most. Below 6, 5, like this is where you have like some medium enemies, but a lot of small ones. So this is where you take weapons like your, like the Stalwart machine gun, for example, which you get from here. I'll show you in a second. So like the Stalwart machine gun is still fairly useful. See, it just mows through like all these little bugs, or even like the machine gun, the base one that comes unlocked. This just shreds through the small and like medium enemies, but it's not reasonable, right? You need the slot for something else. You can't use the slot to like mow down medium enemies. This is where your breaker comes in. This is where your main weapon comes in like high tier gameplay. So the problem with the nerf is the fact that I no longer have something that deals with small and medium enemies. I would like to not have a nerf to the magazine capacity. I would rather have a small nerf to the damage that it does. And hear me out. The reason for the nerf is it deals too much damage. I still think that the SG225 breaker deals way too much damage. You can argue that the damage versus like magazine capacity is roughly the same thing. You wouldn't be wrong when it comes to larger enemies, right? The SG225 breaker is above the kill cap when it comes to... Oh, this is just stuck now. The SG225 breaker is above the kill threshold when it comes to every single small enemy, and even for some medium enemies, they one-shot them. So I think that there is room to reduce the damage where it is slightly less effective against your brute commanders. It's slightly less effective against your chargers. It's useless against the Titan unless you want to like. So this is your primary clear weapon, basically. That's what this becomes. In high tier gameplay, your main weapon is your primary clear weapon. So reducing ammo capacity reduces your ability to deal with small groups of enemies. And that's basically what kills you. I've been caught running out of ammo pretty quickly, even like when the mission drops, first 2-3 minutes, I run through all 7 mags just clearing, especially if I take stratagems that help me deal with big enemies like the rail strike, like the orbital. I'm not necessarily going to deploy those. So I don't agree. Like, this doesn't matter. As I said, you shouldn't be full autoing it anyway. But I'd rather see the damage nerfed by like 10-15%. Bring it closer to like the kill threshold, make it less effective against heavy enemies, and keep it just as effective against small and medium targets. And just it shouldn't be used as a basically anyway. I think you get the point. So the Edge 8 Punisher, right? This is the shotgun here, I believe. Yeah, so this is the first shotgun that you unlock. I like the idea of this shotgun. Increases total ammo capacity from 40 to 60, increases stagger force, increases damage from 40 to 45 per bullet. That's interesting. This makes the SG8 Punisher exactly what I was saying that the Breaker is. The problem with the Punisher was that it, first of all, runs out of ammo way too quickly, right? I mean, you're talking 60 bullets is not a lot, especially when like we just saw that the Breaker has 91, total ammo capacity. I would have loved to use the Punisher as my go-to weapon, especially when it comes to dealing with like small targets, when it comes to dealing with like small to medium targets, because that's where it really shines. That's where your main weapon really shines. But let's see. We got to test it out. We got to see how it behaves in game. Now, I'm not 100% confident that this does anything. I think this is where the main buff comes from. The stagger force is nice, I guess. You don't use it that often. I mean, stagger isn't... It's useful, I guess, when you get rushed, but it's not necessarily like the main thing that you expect your main weapon to do. So let's see how that behaves. So the SG225 Breaker Spray and Pray. That is the... Where is it? No, it's... No. That's the counter sniper. That's the slugger. Wait, is it in here? It's the last weapon here, right? No, that's the... Am I silly? Okay, we're just gonna cut this out. SG225 SP Breaker Spray and Pray. Wait, let me find this. Oh, there it is. Okay. So page 9, the SG225 SP Breaker Spray and Pray. This is an interesting weapon. Obviously, I don't have it unlocked, but I've seen people use it. They've increased armor penetration. They've increased fire rate. They've increased pellets from 12 to 16 per shot. They've decreased mag size from 32 to 26. So I think that what all of these buffs do, they bring the 225 SP closer to the damage potential of the 225 Breaker. Especially with the added armor penetration. This is what really holds weapon back from being useful against like your brute commanders. or like the weak spots on the automatons, the heavy ones. This is what really holds weapons back from being useful past mid game, is the fact that you deal with so many armored enemies that they're just bullet sponges, right? So with no armor penetration, it doesn't matter how many mags you have. The mag size decreased by 6, so that's what, like 20%. Again, I'm not a fan of mag decreases, right? That I don't see this as a necessary nerf. Again, I haven't really used that weapon. It sounds a little bit like a full auto shotgun. I mean, I've seen people use it. It is a spray and pray. Increased fire rate, you're going to go through your mag even faster. You do significantly more damage. You do like 30% more damage with it. So a slight decrease in mag size pretty much balances, like this to this brings it to like an even amount of DPS. If you kind of think about it, like the total DPS output. Well, no, sorry. The DPS output is the same. The total damage is less. Is the same. The DPS is higher. I'm interested to see how this weapon behaves. I've been eyeing it out. I mean, of course, it's it's almost like a final tier weapon. Very few people are using it right now. Seems like this weapon is not particularly being used in like mid-tier play, because there's no mid-tier, there's no people running mid-tier missions using this weapon. For high level, I guess the community feedback is in. Let's see how it behaves. The RS-422 railgun. So that's where the real shit is. That has been the weapon of choice. If we look at there it is, the RS-422 railgun. So this is your third slot weapon. This is a cooldown weapon, right? It's a support weapon. I think that they did the right thing. So the railgun is not, see, basically one-shots, like medium targets, and it strips the armor off of heavies. This is a must-take right now. If your team is not running a railgun, you are struggling to deal with heavy enemies. You are struggling to penetrate like armor targets. The autocannon, which is the poor man's railgun, is effective-ish against medium armor targets. Well, medium armor targets. They say here that's like against light vehicle armor, but it's the poor man's because, first of all, it takes a shield slot. It takes a backpack slot where normally your shield would go into. It's slow to reload. It does have 5 bullets per shot, I think. So that's quite nice. Or is it 10? I think it's 5. It's good, right? It's fine. I've used it a couple of times, but it doesn't even hold a candle to the railgun. The railgun has 20 charges, 20 shots. When you pick up an ammo pack just out there in the world, it recharges 5 shots for you. If you pick up an ammunition, a supply ammo from a supply pod, you refill 10. It charges pretty quickly. It can kill titans if you hit them in the mouth with like a couple of shots. And right now, it is genuinely, I would say, overpowered. This is a must-have. This is on par with the breaker. If you're not running the breaker on the railgun up until today, you are struggling, right? Like these two weapons are the real deal. So what they've done, and I like it a lot, is, and I'm not sure if these two are correlated. We need to test. So it says decreased armor penetration in safe mode. So right now it takes 2 railgun shots. What does safe mode do, right? So safe mode caps your damage output at 50%. So you can only charge the railgun to 50%. If you put the railgun in unsafe mode, which is like you hold R and then you kind of like switch it to unsafe mode, like you just right click and you switch it to like unsafe mode, it lets the railgun go up to 100% damage potential. But if you charge it for too long, you die, right? So it explodes and you're dead. So that's kind of how it works. When you're just running around, like normally just doing your stuff, there's no reason for you to run the railgun in unsafe mode because 50% damage was enough. You needed 2 shots to destroy the legs of like a charger. Well, a charger doesn't really look like that, right? It's more of like this. So you needed 2 shots to the leg to strip the armor off in safe mode. And then from here on, it takes like 3 to 4 breaker shots, or I think 1 or 2 more railgun shots to completely kill the charger if you shoot it in the leg that you broke. they've decreased armor penetration in safe mode, which means that in unsafe mode, which I'm assuming if it goes like above 50% charge, I don't know exactly how they kind of did this. So my assumption is if like damage output is higher than 50%, so if you're like below 50%, then it takes like 3 to 4 shots maybe, and if you're like above 50%, then it takes like 2 shots. I'm not 100% how sure how they did this. I didn't know that this was like a damage related, like the shield, like the armor on the heavy was like on the charger was damage point related, because most weapons just don't do any damage to it at all. Curious how they did this in the back end, but in the front end, what it means for us is we'll have to use the railgun in unsafe mode much more often, which I like. And I like because I use the railgun in unsafe mode more often than I would like. Every time I'm fighting a Bile Titan, I switch it to unsafe mode just because you can basically two-shot a Bile Titan in its mouth. So if you didn't know, if a Bile Titan starts spitting and you railgun shot it in the mouth, you can take it down in like 2-3 hits. So you don't need to use a stratagem for that. But there was no reason to use it in unsafe mode before. Now there is one. So I'm liking this a lot. I think that there is no reason to nerf it. It just needs to be like a higher risk reward type of weapon. And I think that it's going to change the gameplay a little bit. But most people that have been trying to use the railgun to its maximum potential, which means running it in unsafe mode more often, will not necessarily find a big difference in the playstyle. It's just gonna be a learning curve to the weapon, right? So if until now you could run it in safe mode most of the game and just kind of get away with it, now you have to switch it into unsafe mode, take a risk if you want to actually kill anything. The flamethrower, this is another support weapon. So the flamethrower is a okay weapon to use. It kills chargers in like 1 canister, allegedly. Mixed results on that. It does kill, like all the small targets pretty quickly, even medium ones. It's the napalm call down, but it's a weapon instead. Do people really take it? Not really. Will you pick it up if you find it in the world and it's just convenient because you're being chased? Let's say you're like running a railgun, you run by an interest point, you're chased by like an army of like these tiny little hunters. Are you gonna pick up a flamethrower? Yeah, you're gonna pick up the flamethrower, just clear whatever area, like clear the area behind you, drop it, take your railgun, and like just continue playing. Is anybody using the flamethrower against automatons? No, because automatons are ranged. The flamethrower is too close quarters. You're going to die by the time you even get to them. This weapon is unusable in automaton missions. Just basically because they just shoot you, right? Like you have to look how close you have to get, and then they can shoot you from like over here. Are people running it in automaton missions? Yes. Does it kill automatons? Yes. Is it worth the risk? No. So what they've done is they've increased the DPS by 50%. What this will do, it will basically make sure that medium bugs don't actually get to you. So the way we can see it here, these are not in like attack mode. These are just in sort of like running slowly at you mode. Usually they move a little bit faster. I don't know how this is scripted. But the 50% DPS will either, 1, guarantee that a 1 canister will kill a charger, and 2, it will guarantee that at least everything except the Brute Commander will probably die before it gets to you, as long as you're shooting at it. Again, this is a like shoot and move back type of weapon. It's not a shoot and move forward because you're setting yourself on fire. Very defensive type of weapon. It's great for holding high ground, for example, in defense missions. But it is, again, it's a very situational weapon. Does it need a buff? Yes, absolutely. The DPS on it was quite weak. It was unreliable that you would kill anything except the very small bugs. Everything else was like a 50-50 that they're going to die. And lastly, the LAS-98 laser cannon, which is over here. This is the weapon that nobody's using, and the reason why nobody's using it is because it is just not worth the slot, to be honest. It bounces off, like it literally deflects off of most heavy armor. What you can see here is like they're killing medium automatons. Anything that's heavy will just simply bounce off the laser. Anybody who picked this up thinking that they can kill some medium level enemies were severely disappointed seeing the laser just deflect somewhere else. So what they've done is they've increased damage against durable enemy parts, which is great. They've increased armor penetration, which is interesting. Improved ergonomics, I mean, sure. What I'm curious about is this weapon worth a pickup in missions exactly like this, where these chainsaw warriors are like the biggest threat to you, or the brute commanders are the biggest threat to you, which is probably like challenge 4, challenge 5, I would say. Am I gonna pick this up in like a tier 8, tier 9 mission? Probably not. The railgun is still way too good, even with the nerf, or the balance, let's put it this way. Should you pick this up? I mean, it's still probably better than the incendiary mines. Will it help you deal with these like medium enemies? Well, until now you had the breaker, right? So the breaker just absolutely melts these enemies. There was no reason to use the laser cannon. You're better off using your slot for something else. Is there a case where you pick up the laser cannon as your 4th slot, or like as your weapon of choice? I mean, the grenade launcher is just better. The grenade launcher kills nests. The grenade launcher closes automaton factories. The grenade launcher has area damage. The grenade launcher, if you shoot it in the ground, like actually clears giant waves. And in terms of DPS, it is comparable to the laser cannon. I guess what gives merit to the laser cannon is the fact that it doesn't require ammunition. So the fact that they've increased the damage when it doesn't have an ammo count is good. It's not like ammo is a problem in mid-tier missions. So the grenade launcher is still a better shot, is still a better trade-off than the laser cannon. Can you run with it every now and then? Yeah, sure. I mean, you could. Is it worth the pickup? I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. My gut says no. It's still not worth the pickup. It's a cool weapon. I think it's a cool idea. I don't know. I think it needs a buff so that it can actually melt through heavy armor in order for it to be worth a pickup. The only thing that can really melt through heavy right now is, well, technically the arc thrower can go through it, but otherwise the only weapons that can help you melt through heavy armor is the spear and the railgun. The autocannon does not go through heavy armor, well, at least not reliably. So, for example, like if you shoot these guys with the laser, it's just going to bounce off, as far as I remember. So these two are your only options for heavy armor. Like the spear can, one-shot a tank, quote unquote, if it actually hits, if it actually lands and doesn't bug out or doesn't hit terrain or doesn't lock onto something else, which are, known problems with the spear, including the backpack requirement and the long-ass reload time. Should they make the laser cannon go through heavy armor? I think so. I think they should bump the laser cannon all the way up to the arc thrower, replace the arc thrower with the laser cannon in terms of the level of the weapon. Nobody uses the arc thrower. A lot of people use the arc thrower. It's a high risk, medium reward type of weapon. Like, yes, it can one-shot small enemies. Well, at least you saw it one-shots the first two and then it like scratches the third. It does not one-shot like heavy targets or medium targets. In theory, it does damage to heavy targets. It takes a lot of shots. It does not consume ammo. It kills friendlies. It like one-shots your personal shield, like your shield generator. It gets one-shot by this. It's decent in automaton missions because it goes through the armor. So, for example, if there's somebody like around the corner or if there's like those walkers, it actually goes through the armor of the walker and kills the bot behind it. It is useful. Is it often used in high-level play? You see it from time to time. It doesn't hold a handle. Like, again, the grenade launcher is considerably more effective than this. So if anything, I would like the laser cannon to be swapped with the arc thrower and give the laser cannon the ability to penetrate through heavy armor. And then I'll be like, okay, that seems like a balanced weapon. I think the laser cannon, just the way it is just not worth it. Let's go into stratagems. So first off, the shield generator pack. The shield generator pack is a must-have pretty much in any high-level mission. It is completely overpowered if you go back into like mid-tier missions, you are pretty much immortal. They've increased the delay before recharging. No particular gripe there. I think the shield generator recharges way too fast, especially given considering how difficult it is to get it down. I mean, unless you get hit by something super heavy. So let's say a teammate shoots you with the arc generator, or you like eat a grenade to the face, or I don't know, if the Titan steps on you, that's a bit of a different problem. When you're getting swarmed by a million things, you're waiting for this thing to be recharged. It can't come fast enough. But for how effective the shield generator actually is, I think it does need a little bit of a nerf. I think it's a good idea to nerf the recharge delay rather than nerf the total amount that it protects. The reason for that is a single stalker can still take you out through the generator pack if you're not careful. An army of little hunters can still take you out through the shield generator pack. So what this does is actually the delay before recharging, what it does is it actually helps you prioritize combat rather than running away. So let's say, for example, even in automaton missions, right? As you're running away, you are getting nuked, you're getting shot, you're getting rocketed. The shield generator absorbs some of that damage, and right now the recharge delay is like 5 seconds or something. So you can pretty reliably tank a lot of damage purely because it recharges so quickly. Now you have to be more careful in wasting it. So instead of just simply tanking damage, you are more likely to look for cover, you're more likely to dive, you are less likely to just kind of like dodge and weave through a million bugs, knowing that even if you take damage, you can basically stim yourself through a recharge. So that means that you can, use 1 or 2 stims, and your shield gen is going to be back up before you can, run again. Am I happy that they nerfed the shield generator? Not so much, primarily because there's no better alternative. The drones are not good enough as a backpack. There's no weapon right now that is good enough to warrant me carrying a backpack. This is the only viable option for carrying a backpack with you. Everything else just seems subpar. But again, I'm talking about like difficulty 8 and 9. On lower difficulties, there's a lot of options when it comes to backpacks. Like even just picking up like the ammo is great. Carrying ammo with you for your teammates is great. It's even more necessary in high-level play because people run out of ammo all the time, including the decreased magazine capacity for the breaker. Ammo is even going to become a bigger problem. So I think instead of nerfing, I would like to see buffs. But then again, this makes sense, right? Like the state of things as it is right now, this makes sense. And finally, the last two, the orbital 120 millimeter and 300 millimeter HE barrage. These are these two. So the 120 millimeter and the 380. I mean, you can see an army of bugs here, which is like just your average encounter. And this orbital doesn't even clear this. Right, you can see that this is the video from the last patch, right? Like this is the old way it used to work. You can see like what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bugs. It doesn't even clear that. It is ridiculously weak. It is a low level, but the airbus strike just absolutely decimates. Look how much damage this does, even on this video. The airbus strike is almost a must pick as your like clear orbital of choice. Because it has a super low cooldown, it has a 120-second cooldown, and if you upgrade it, it's even less. That is sensible enough to be used basically off cooldown, to be honest. The 120mm HE barrage has a 2-minute cooldown, so does the 380mm HE barrage. They're showing bombing like an automaton sort of like outpost, sort of factory. Like, this is extremely unreliable damage. If they added, so what they did to this was they increased the duration of the bombardment and they decreased the spread, right? So they've made it even more concentrated. So more damage, more focus. I would have liked them to do something else, to be honest, in order to balance these. So I would have liked to see the orbital 120mm and the 380mm barrage act more as a rail cannon strike, for example. Where it like prioritizes particular targets. So for example, when you throw in the walking barrage is actually pretty, I've never seen anybody use this. So what I would have liked them to see is like, okay, there's a 380mm HE barrage. It will prioritize hitting targets that are high value, right? So basically think of it as like multiple rail cannon strikes in an area. Of course, they're not as powerful as a rail cannon strike. These are 380 HEs or 120 millimeter HEs. So instead of just randomly shooting everywhere and potentially missing 100% of the shots, like you could very well throw this over an area and kill like 3 bots with it, which is just ridiculously useless. Like here, it's hitting a building by accident, right? I would like to see it prioritize targets at least with like some margin of error. Like it doesn't have to be as precise as the rail cannon, which is a pretty viable pick in late gameplay as well. At least there's like it prioritizes circles around the target, right? So let's say you have a radar station here or whatever, like you have this like factory here. It has a 50% chance of aiming at a factory rather than just aiming anywhere, because throwing it in such a large radius, it's not going to do anything. And just the fact that it bombards more, like it increases the chance that it will hit something useful, but it doesn't guarantee that. At least giving it some sort of reliable, like making it at least somewhat reliable is better than this. I don't think that this is going to actually impact it so much, especially if you're thinking about the fact that these are orbitals. So orbital 120 millimeter HE will just lose to the airstrike. This is insanely good, especially if you upgrade your hangar. So if you go to your hangar and you expand your weapon bay, you do your eagle radar time at 20%. Right, this will absolutely melt nests. This will melt like groups of enemies. This deals significant damage to tanks as well, where they get those tanks or those like chargers within range of killing it with your primary weapon. As you can see, I haven't even unlocked these because I just don't particularly care about unlocking them. They're just not feasible to be used at all. I mean, the napalm is fine, but so. Yeah, these are still lackluster compared to the Eagle strikes. I don't think this is enough of a buff to them to actually make them usable. If anything, they can decrease the duration of the bombardment back to the way it was. It's just like give it some sort of a radar, like give it like some sort of reliability, because the way it is right now, it's just not there yet. Okay, so fixes. We can go through these very quick. Fixed armor rating values not reducing damage as intended. As we know, the armor rating is bugged. I wonder how the game will feel right now, because playing light armor or playing heavy armor didn't really make a difference. So I'm curious to see, like I'm a light armor runner. I'm curious to see, even though I'm wearing medium armor right now, I'm curious to see how this will actually impact the amount of damage that you take. Especially I'm curious to see how the like armor plus like shield combo is going to work. Like if you take like the shield backpack, right, with the little bubble here. So for example, let's say with the heavy armor, I used to have, let's say like 100 effective HP. With the light armor, I have like 67 effective HP, right? But the total shield, like the total HP of the shield, for example, let's say 100. Bot example, right? So let's say now I have 200 effective HP, whereas with this I have like 167 effective HP, which doesn't really make a difference. To be honest, the only case where this makes a difference is if you don't run the barrier shield. 67 effective HP, if it is the way I imagine it, is actually not that much. If we think that all the armors had 100 HP right now, you can die pretty quick. So I'm assuming with the light armor, you will die even quicker. If they did indeed fix the armor to the point where it does the damage, like it provides the amount of damage that it's supposed to, right? So here you have an armor rating of 50, which actually used to be 56, if I'm not mistaken. Looks like they slightly improved the speed from 545 to 550. I think. Right, so this is like the infiltrator. This is the first armor that you unlock in the battle pass. So this is a 530, 115, 70. So this is like a middle of the pack type of armor. And then all these are like 150, 100s. And the heavy armors are 150, 450, 50s. So this is huge, right? Like a stamina regeneration rate of 50 versus 125 is insanely low, even if you consider running the stamina booster from the battle pass. I don't know if this, because if you can't run, they're just gonna catch up to you, right? Like the Titan is gonna catch up to you. This is not gonna save you from a Bio Titan stepping on you. So I still don't see a reason to like not run movement speed and instead have more health especially if you're running the shield backpack. Like this doesn't add up for me, but maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it scales differently. Maybe it's not percentage based. Like maybe this is, this is 50% armor and this is 100% armor on whatever. Probably the best bang for your buck is here at the 75, 30, 115. These sort of like medium light armors or like light medium armors. There is, outrunning, like especially when it comes to bugs, like outrunning bugs, it's where it's at. This is what allows you to lose aggro. This is what allows you to basically not die to like a Titan that lost its like ability to spit on you. This is what allows you to like get behind cover before the tank shoots at you versus not getting behind cover. This is what allows you to get to the objective faster. The movement speed in this game means a lot. It means even a lot more than health, especially with the shield generator backpack, which is basically like a self heal. Will I trade off armor rating for speed and stamina regen? Probably not. I don't really see a reason to do so. Allegedly, and this is, has to be, probably some other YouTuber can confirm this. A heavy armor actually lets you carry heavy things like the backpack without a movement speed penalty. Maybe I have to look a little bit deeper into this because you do get a movement speed penalty by having like a backpack. But, I don't really see a reason to run heavy armor, at least when you're getting chased by like a million things. Health doesn't matter because if they catch up to you, you're dead anyway. 50% damage reduction is not going to help you when you don't have any ammo and you just need to get to the point faster, or you need to get to your like reload faster, or you need to put a little bit of a gap between you and the enemy so that you can call in like an airstrike. Safety, safety versus health, like distance between you and the enemy versus health means a lot more. Of course, if you're in the middle of a fight, especially when it comes to automatons, like you can tank more shots. Yes, when you're fighting bugs, not so much, because generally you just don't want them to get near you anyway. So let's see. Fix certain bug holes, including stock nests that were unnecessarily hard to destroy. I'm not sure if what they mean by this. I didn't really have problems destroying stock nests as long as the nade lands right in the middle. Maybe they're talking about the overall hitbox of the bug hole, because it is often the case that you're shooting grenades, or especially when you use the grenade launcher, you can see this, that you're shooting kind of like the entrance of the bug hole, or let's say if this is the bug hole, right, and it kind of has this like little roof. Oh, it's actually bigger, right? So the roof is kind of like this, and the bug hole is kind of like this. So if you're not hitting like this hitbox here, you're basically not closing it. And it's kind of like a hole like this, right? So if you're hitting here or here or here, or like even here sometimes, you're hitting like on the edges here, it doesn't really close. So let me see if I can find, probably not. They're not going to show it in here. Maybe they are showing it on like a... No. Well, anyway, it's fine. So maybe that's what they mean. Like they just kind of increase like the overall hitbox. Fixed anti-aliasing toggle now working PS5. Okay. This is probably nice. Anti-aliasing works quite well in this game. You can see significant-ish difference between using it and not using it, especially with like very thin textures like fences. So if you have like fences that have this sort of like grid, and especially if there's like a source of light, let's say somewhere here, like there's a light shining on them, you can see them flicker. So if your anti-aliasing is off, you can see them flickering all the time, especially with like also like thin leaves in the distance. Anti-aliasing on removes this flicker, which kind of removes some visual clutter from the game. It does eat quite a bit of FPS if you turn it on. So it is a little bit of a personal preference to run it or not. I like the way the game looks with it on, but I also like my frames. So it's a bit of a trade-off. Balanced lighting across all planets to solve cases where the game was too dark. I don't know how big of a problem this was. The game is very, very dark at night. It is bordering unplayable dark. The flashlights are way too small. Like they don't actually help. So hopefully this is a fix to nighttime missions more so than daytime. The problem with daytime is actually the light is too strong to the point where you have to shoot out the light sources. Improved flashlight, okay, nice. The flashlight right now was completely unusable. It was like if this is you, right, as like with like a big scary gun in your hand, then the flashlight is like this big. It's ridiculous. It's tiny. It's smaller than your head. You can't see anything. Increased visibility during sun, rain, weather on Errata Prime. This is great because you can't see shit on Errata Prime. For those of you who don't know, Errata is the orange kind of like dust looking planet. It is horrible to run missions on Errata. If I'm not mistaken, it is here. So there is fire right now on Errata Prime, and there is, well, not fire, but there's tremors. So, okay, so these are the tremors, the earthquakes, stun players, and intense heat, high temperature, whatever. You can't see shit. That's the thing. On Errata Prime, especially if you get like a mushroom, you genuinely cannot see anything at all. You can see like a meter ahead of you, which is fun gimmick, right? But it's just not, it's not pleasant to play a game where you can only see like just fog around you, like there's nothing visible at all. It adds to the immersion, right? Like once or twice, the first times you see it, it's like cool, but after you've done it a few times, you're like, okay, I actually would like to see something, and not just kind of run through like a mist. So in terms of visibility, I'm not saying to remove it. I hope this works the way like the way it makes the map playable without removing sort of the immersion of like being in a sandstorm. Tutorial materials, sure. Cases where some materials could look blurry if lighting graphic was set to low. I've definitely experienced this when I was playing around with the graphic options. When you set the lighting graphic to low, some materials basically don't load. Well, they look as if they're not loaded. Like they look like super blurry. They're just like a blurry mess. I wasn't sure why that is happening because I didn't mind the way the game looks on low, especially given the FPS boost that you get, especially like if you're streaming. So I'm curious to see if this is fixed now and I can actually run the game on low settings so I can like break that like 100 plus stable FPS even though I have a 3070 Ti. Fixed timing issues that could occur in extract the E710 primary objective. If I'm not mistaken, the E710 primary objective is the one where you have like an oil rig or something. So there were issues with like, yeah, just kind of like, man, correct me if I'm wrong, like you have this like plane and the plane has like this little fuel chute that goes in here and you have like a lever and you have to like constantly flip the lever like back and forth, and there were some timing issues. There's also a bit of a timing issue in like the extract fuel ones where you have this like little pump. I'm not sure which one this refers to. I'm assuming it's the one with the plane, but like sometimes you would like rotate the pump, the light would turn like green, and then the objective would bug out and like tell you that it's not flipped. I'm assuming that they're referring to like the lever where you have this like tube thing and you have to like constantly lever it on and off. So unfortunately, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that's what they're talking about. Then the change button interaction behavior for button in bunker POIs. Helldiver will now let go of the button after holding it for a few seconds. Okay, for those of you who didn't know, in the past you could, when you open like the two-player bunker, so you had like this big door and then you had like two terminals here, one here and one here, and they were like glowy, and then the door opens, right, and then here you have like some shelves and like some items on the shelves, and then here you have like some ammo. The way it used to work in the past is like you would have, you know, obviously one player push, two player push, and then it would stay on the button forever. A lot of people were confused, thinking that you have to hold the button until the end, until the doors finish opening. What you could do is you could press the enter button again as soon as it turns green. So as soon as like two people press it, it turns green. Oh, you can't do it this way. It turns green, and the moment it turns green, you can just press interact to let go, and the door still continues to open, so you don't have to sit there and like tank damage or just waste time. So now apparently they let go on their own. Nice quality of life improvement. Fix some cases of large assets floating if the ground beneath them was blown up. Happens sometimes. Most often happens when you're like bombing large areas and buildings. It's not that big of an issue, but it is, you know, it's not visually nice, so it's great that they're kind of, you know, fixing this. Helldivers standing next to the ICBMs during launch will get properly toasty with a chance of not so spontaneous combustion. This is awesome. For those of you who don't know, the ICBM is the one, like the sort of the trapdoor that you have to kind of open, and there's like a giant intercontinental ballistic missile, which is what ICBM stands for. And then there's like a big rocket that that doesn't look like a rocket. So you have this like big rocket. You know, there's like a little person in here, and you're launching this, and it goes and it just blows up into like a giant nuke, right? So there would be like fire everywhere around here. Like there would be like fire all around the point, and then you could just kind of walk through it. Bugs could walk through it as well without dying. It was a little bit awkward. It was like not so realistic, quote unquote. Hopefully this also applies, like properly toasty also applies to bugs. The most funny thing was when you had like the rocket going up, and there were like little bugs, and they would just like walk directly under, like into the hole or under the engine and then survive. It just looked silly. It's not a big thing, right? It doesn't happen very often, but it just does look silly, and it just kind of makes you like, oh, you know, kind of breaks the immersion of the game a little bit, where it's like, oh, this is a game. Like they didn't fix this, they didn't implement this, they didn't think about this. But anybody who knows, you know, about game development, there's a million things to do and a million things to fix. Okay, fixed unthrowable snowballs after ragdolling. I would have loved to actually get the prompt to make a snowball at least once. I've been trying to get snowballs for a while. I never got the prompt to make a snowball. My friends did get this where they couldn't throw it after they've been kind of knocked around. But I'm yet to experience throwing a snowball. Fixed being able to use grenades after drowning. I've only drowned once, so I'm not 100% sure about this. I've never experienced this, but I guess this was a problem for some players. What is a little bit questionable, I guess, is... Well, not questionable, but it's like, okay, if you drown, right? Like if you're a player and if you drown, like you're dead, then all of your stuff drops, right? You have like your samples and you have like your weapon, and it stays at the bottom, which kind of, you know, sort of, well, let's say like the ground goes up, right? And then you can walk here, but like you can't go here. So I don't really get like why you can't take the risk and like swim and then kind of retrieve these things if it's not so deep, because you can't see, like you're pretty much walking on top of it at this point. So you can't sort of like risk retrieving and then run back quickly. I don't really know why they went for that. It's like assuming they're at the bottom, but visually they look like they're, you know, maybe a meter deep or like 3 feet deep. I guess it's fine. It is a little bit annoying, particularly because the depth of the water is not telegraphed very well. So you could be like, you know, I'm like walking, and then all of a sudden you sort of sink a little bit deeper and you just kind of start swimming, and you're like, oh shit, I need to turn back. And by the time you turn, because you're so slow, by the time you turn around, you actually drown. So it has happened that it is unclear, or the worst part is, let's say, and this is a real case, right? So you have like, this is a top view, right? So you have like some rocks here, you have some rocks here, you have like some rocks here and then the shoreline, and then like you can walk through here, you can walk through here, you can walk through here. Sort of like this area is, no, sorry, like this area is like fine to walk through. This, okay, let me draw it this differently. Just pick a different color, I guess. So if you go like green, right? So basically like this area is like fine to walk through, for example, but here you basically drown immediately. So if you go, like if you step like here, you pretty much start drowning instantly. And this is like barely wide enough to contain a player. And visually, it doesn't look like it's deep enough. Visually, it looks like this and this are very, very close to each other. But the moment you step in here, you start drowning, or you even have areas which are like, and I know that I guess they're somewhat pseudo-randomly generated, is like you can walk here, sort of like this is safe, to basically, well, like this, all of this is safe, but here, like immediately, the moment you step kind of just like slightly off, like here's just like a giant bit of death. And it's just this like one center hole that you can't walk into, which is very, very awkward. Like you can walk here, like you can stand here, and all of your stuff is in the hole and you can't get it. And like visually it looks like you can, but in reality it doesn't, you can't get it. So a little bit strange with the drowning mechanic. I hope they work a bit more on it, but it's not really a big deal right now. I don't think they should be focusing on this at all. It happens very rarely. Camera no longer locked on player's own corpse after and blocking spectator mode. Okay, this was cool. This is cool. It's kind of awkward to be stuck in spectator mode on your own corpse. It's not a great view. You can't really see what's happening. You stop communicating with the team. Helldivers now take damage from fire, gas generated by other players. I always assumed that this was true, so I tried to not step in the fire and the gas generated by other players because friendly fire is on. So my guess is that they're just bringing this in line to the way it was supposed to be from the very beginning. And if it wasn't, then it was a bug. I don't particularly remember because you do take damage from every other player's weapon. So I do assume that this is just the way it's supposed to be in the first place. So I've never thought that I don't take damage from gas. And armor no longer stretches when dismembered. Okay, I mean, this is just a visual bug. So apart from actually testing the weapons in the game, I think this is about it for the patch notes. I'm going to give it a shot and maybe make a follow-up video on like the actual performance of the weapons. I do hope that they're going to release another secondary patch, like a 101, where they reconsider the magazine capacity for the breaker and they actually give, because they've mostly like fixed like the shotguns. I do hope that they rebalance and rework especially some of the automated guns, like the assault rifles, because they are atrocious to use right now. There is no reason to use them pretty much. This is such a late game weapon that it doesn't matter. This is an early game weapon that I hope is a bit more useful. And this is the weapon that everybody runs. So I'm really hoping to see patches to like assault rifles. But until that happens, let's see how bad is this nerf. I can already tell that it's going to be pretty bad in terms of ammo capacity. And I forgot to mention one more thing. The reason why the ammo capacity is a problem here, and not the damage and not the recoil, is because there are no reliable secondary weapons for you to use. So if you go into like secondaries, right, you have your the standard pistol, which is, you know, next to useless. You have the Senator, which is the revolver that you unlock early if you have the premium battle pass. So you can use it as like a medium armor penetrating. And then you use the Redeemer. And the Redeemer is the best pistol in the game right now for the pure reason that it's like a Uzi. It acts like as an Uzi, like a fully automatic like mini machine gun. You can use it to clear either like one or two big enemies like spitters. You can clear them pretty quickly. It has a lot of damage, has like 60 damage. 31 capacity, right, compared to 15 and 6. Very low recoil, like even lower recoil than like the Peacemaker, like way lower recoil than the Senator. 1,000 fire rate, right? It's like twice the fire rate of like your assault rifles, 3 times the fire rate of the Liberator, 3 times the fire rate of the Breaker, right? Twice the fire rate of the SMG-37 Defender, which is also like, it's a fine main weapon to use sometimes. It's not, the bullets aren't powerful enough. They do 70 damage, right, which is the same as basically the Redeemer. So this is overall a good weapon. It only has 4 mags, though, so you can't really use it a lot. Like if this had like 8 mags, it would be a lot better. I think that they should balance this out, like the nerf to primaries and like the very, very slight buff to like some other primaries. They could balance it out by giving you more ammo for secondary weapons. And the reason why I'm saying that we need more ammo for secondary weapons is 4 magazines for that pistol are barely enough to kill anything. You still rely on your primary to actually clear waves of like medium enemies if you don't want to use your stratagems. Basically giving players less ammo makes you play the game less. Ultimately, that's what it does, right? So if you don't have ammo, you can't shoot. If you can't shoot, you can't play the game. You have to run, seek cover, seek ammo, run to a teammate. But if like both of you don't have ammo, then what you're going to do? So ultimately, just decreasing resources just makes you play the game less, which is not something that I'm a fan of. I already run out of ammo fairly quickly. I mean, you could say that, oh, you're playing the game wrong and like you should be using your stratagems, but like if you're running stratagems like orbital and railgun strike or like orbital and that, you're not particularly going to use it to like clear small waves of enemies. So if you're like the designated Titan killer in your team and you get like slightly stranded, then of course you can make the argument like, well, one of you now has to carry the flamethrower. This is a team game. It's like, yeah, true, right? Like somebody could be bringing weapons that basically clear small enemies more so than big enemies, sure, fine. Like I get that. In a coordinated team, you can pick out loadouts that basically work to work on each other's weaknesses and strengths. In random play, in like cooperative, just like drop in, drop out type of play, it doesn't happen very often. It's quite punishing to kind of like solo duo play as well. Not everybody can put together a 4-man team to kind of play all the time together. So it's just unnecessary. In my opinion, I would rather see a reduction in damage so that in the end your total damage output is the same or like slightly less, but it doesn't impact like medium enemies. Okay, that's it for this patch. Let's see how it behaves in game, and I'll see you all on the next stream. Bye bye.